When it comes to targeting big, mature whitetail bucks with limited resources or on small plots of land, people often want to know what the secret is to bring these big bucks to within shooting range. And the honest answer is that under any circumstance, there really isn't ever just one secret that will bring a big buck to within shooting range. And that leads me into this hunt. This big buck is running at me right now. Literally running at me.
I did it, guys.
So I knew from prior experience that there were big bucks in the area. I saw them on the opposite side of the field on numerous occasions and caught a few that I would consider shooters on the trail camera, but I wasn't having any luck bringing them down to within bow range until just a couple days before the successful hunt. I was in the tree, I had a big buck coming my way, and just as I went to put away my scent can, I missed my pocket and dropped it onto the platform of the stand, and he just turned and walked right away. Luckily I didn't spook him too much, so I think he stayed in the area, but just a couple days later I was in the stand and the same experience I had been having many times before this played out right in front of me. The big buck was on the other side of the field walking across, and up until this point, I didn't know what to do to bring him to me. And this is where I'm getting at, that there's never one secret to bring a big buck down to bow range. This big buck was 200 yards behind me walking across the field, and he was upwind. This was a scenario that played out numerous other times with big bucks, and up until this point, I just didn't know what to do to bring him within bow range. There were a group of does almost between me and him, and thanks to the Deer Society videos on calling and all of the different techniques to bring a whitetail deer into within bow range, I knew exactly what I needed to do to bring this guy into bow range. It was November 23rd, and at this point in the year we were starting to move into what a lot of people would call the post rut. That point in the year where does are starting to cool down, the bucks have done a lot of their breeding, chasing is slowing down, but what little chasing is left is done by bucks looking to do some last chance breeding. So with that in mind, I got out my Extinguisher deer call and I slid it down to the buck section and I gave him a couple contact grunts. It was just like this. It was and with that, there was absolutely no response, so I moved into the more complex type of calling, and I just think that the wind was too strong coming upwind from the deer, and he just wasn't hearing it. So I got out my rattling antlers and I cracked them together one good time, and this buck turned towards me and he started running at me. This big buck is running at me right now. Literally running at me. This buck ran all the way up to the woods line, and I think the does that were between me and him caught his attention because he turned and started to walk towards those does. So with that in mind, I got the Extinguisher back out and I slid it up to the doe section and I gave him a couple doe bleats, just like this. So after he heard that, it obviously got his attention and he left those does and he started to travel to where he could come downwind of the sound that he heard and the deer that he thought he was coming to. So he walked all the way through some people's yards. He may have even went out to the road close by, and he circled all the way back around. And that's where the other methods and techniques of bringing deer in came into the picture. I had 2 different types of Signal 11 sent out, as well as a decoy beside the deer feeder. And this deer, he came right into the stand. He came downwind, which couldn't have been more perfect. And then he followed this woods line up, and he smelled the scent, and he went straight to where the scent was, and he couldn't get to the scent because it was on the other side of this fence row. So he followed it down, and then as soon as he got to where he could cross the fence, he looked up, and he looked straight into the eyes of my decoy. And I could tell he was mad. He didn't like to see him there, because at this point in the year, these bucks are trying to find what little does are left to breed, and he didn't like the idea of this buck being with a possible to breed doe. So he looked down and he started to walk towards this decoy, and when that happened, I gave him a little and I took the shot, and it was less than a 20-yard shot right from my tree stand. Gave him the perfect shot, and he took off running straight at my house through the field in front of me.
There he goes. That's the big 10 point, and I just shot him. Oh my God, he's going down. Oh, right there he is. Oh my God. Look at this deer. Oh, look at this thing.
So the point here is that there's almost never just one secret method or technique to bring a big buck, or any deer for that matter, into within bow range. It's almost always a combination of many different methods that will bring that big buck in and present you with a shot with him. If it hadn't been for any one of these techniques that I used to harvest this buck, he probably wouldn't have come within bow range and presented me with a shot.
You have such a better story that you rattled him in and everything too.
Oh, dude. Yeah, it was insane how it was just, I saw him like literally 200 yards away. Then you hit the horns. I only hit him once, and he started running at me.
Nice.
Like literally running.
Without the rattling antlers, he probably wouldn't have heard me whatsoever, just due to the sheer distance between him and I, as well as the speed and the direction of the wind. And without the Extinguisher game call, as well as the know-how to use it, he probably wouldn't have gotten close enough to smell the scent that I had out or see the decoy. And without the scent, he wouldn't have come to the woods line to walk down it and then walk into the field that I was sitting on and see the decoy. The decoy is the only thing in this scenario that might not have changed the outcome had it not been there. Simply because he was already coming into the scent, he was already walking into the field exactly where I wanted him to, and even if he would have walked to where the scent was at, he still would have presented me with the exact same broadside shot that he did. But with how many times I had seen these big bucks far away, I wasn't going to take any chances. I was going to have that decoy there just in case one of them got within sight. I could give the calls, hit the antlers, do what I needed to do to get him to see that decoy and bring him in that way. There are a plethora of techniques out there that you need to be aware of so that the next time you're out in the field and there's a big buck or another deer that you might want to take 200 yards behind you upwind walking across the field, you know what to do and you have the right tools in your tool belt to bring him in within bow range and present you with a shot. Of course, there's a ton of different options when it comes to calling, deer scents and lures, and even different options when it comes to rattling, but when it comes to calling, there's only one call that you need to know about, and that's the Extinguisher game call. This thing has a range from a fawn all the way down to a mature buck call, and it's extremely easy to change between all of them, even between calls while you're out in the woods. All you have to do is slide up and down on this slide here, and even if you don't get this call, just get some sort of call that changes between fawn, doe, and buck calls, and watch the videos put out there by the Deer Society, the people who made this call, because the techniques in those videos are what's going to help you bring deer in and add the tools to your toolkit that are necessary to bring the buck or the deer that you're looking to harvest in within bow range. If there's any secret out there when it comes to harvesting deer and taking the deer that you're after, it's the fact that there are no secrets. You need to know everything and anything possible that you can, so that there is never a situation that you're unprepared for, and you always know what to do to bring that deer to your stand.